May 7th, 2017. Picture this. The Ohio State University graduation ceremony. It's supposed to be a day filled with pure joy, right? Families celebrating, graduates looking ahead.
Such a milestone moment for so many.
Exactly. But then they call the name Reagan Tokes, and she isn't there. Instead, you see her grieving family walking up, tears streaming, to accept her psychology degree posthumously.
It's just heartbreaking to even imagine. Only months before, Reagan, this bright, vibrant senior, she'd been brutally murdered.
And this deep dive, well, it's definitely more than just a true crime story, even though it involves an absolutely horrific crime. We're going to explore Reagan's life, how incredibly vibrant it was.
Yeah, and contrast that with the awful act that cut it short, but also, crucially, the shocking failures in the system, the ones that allowed her killer to be free.
Right. But more than that, what we really want to uncover is how her family took that unimaginable pain, that grief, and somehow channeled it, turned it into this powerful force for real, lasting change.
Which ultimately led to the Reagan Tokes Act. That's right. Our mission today isn't just about the what happened, it's about the why it mattered so much.
And how one family's sheer determination could turn such a tragedy into something that genuinely impacts safety and justice for, well, countless others now.
It really is a deep dive into a system that failed, profoundly failed.
Yeah.
And the incredible effort to make sure it doesn't fail others in the same way again. It's prevention born from the deepest possible grief.
Okay, so let's start with Reagan herself. Reagan Delaney Tokes, born March 13th, 1995 in Edgewood, Kentucky. People who knew her, they all said the same things.
What kinds of things?
Vibrant, energetic, athletic, really caring, and just smart as a whip. That phrase came up a lot. In high school, she was great at lacrosse, tennis, graduated with honors.
Just a really promising young woman, full of life, goals. Her dream was Ohio State University, studying psychology.
Yeah. Her mom described her as this big ball of energy, but also someone with a real soft spot for animals. You just get this picture of someone with a clear path, a good heart.
Absolutely. A very positive trajectory. By early 2017, she's a senior at OSU, living off campus, 4 roommates, working part-time downtown at a place called Bodega to help pay tuition.
And she had her first big job lined up already. Just a few months, literally months, away from graduating and starting her adult life.
But life isn't always simple, is it? Amidst all that promise, she was also dealing with something difficult personally.
Yeah, a tough breakup with her long-term boyfriend, Jacob, or Jake, trying to, keep a brave face, even though it hurt.
Yeah, and that's important context because, as we'll see, relationships often become an initial focus for investigators in cases like this. Her ability to stay focused despite that personal pain, though, that really says something about her resilience.
It really does. So, February 8th, 2017, just 2 months shy of graduation. Reagan leaves her apartment, heads to her evening shift at Bodega.
Okay.
She finishes up, leaves the restaurant around 9:45 p.m., gets into her car, a 1999 silver Acura. And this is where everything starts to go wrong.
The normal rhythm breaks.
Completely. Her parents, they're miles away down in Parkland, Florida. They usually got texts from her, just a quick, I'm okay, to stop them worrying. But this night, nothing. Silence.
Oh, that's the worst feeling for a parent.
Her sister and dad, they blew up her phone, kept calling, texting, but she wouldn't pick up.
And that shift from constant communication to just nothing. That's almost always the first terrifying sign for families, isn't it?
Yeah.
From an investigation perspective, too, that deviation from routine, it screams that something is deeply wrong.
It absolutely did for them. By the next day, still nothing. No one's heard from her. Her roommates check. She's not home. Bedroom's empty. Her bag's there. But she missed class.
Which was totally out of character for her, right?
Completely. Incredibly unusual, they said. The bodega manager confirmed she left work fine without any problem. So at 21, Reagan Tokes is officially reported missing.
And the word starts spreading fast. Social media, local news.
Yeah, the whole community is suddenly on edge and worried. And that awful transition from desperately hoping she's delayed to facing a much darker possibility often comes down to one single terrible phone call.
It does, that agonizing... Wait, and then the call that just shatters everything. Only a day after she disappeared, a man is walking in Scioto Grove Metro Park. He makes this very distressed call to 911.
What did he find?
He'd found a body out in this huge open field. Police arrive, and the scene is grim. The disrobed body of a deceased woman, 2 gunshot wounds to the head, attacked at point-blank range, Body was already cold to the touch.
Oh, my God. Just horrific details. How did they even identify her initially?
It's often small things in those first hours. Personal items, in this case, a very unique necklace she wore, and a distinctive tattoo of a circle. Those helped.
Who made the final confirmation?
Tragically, it was Reagan's uncle. He lived nearby. He had to go and confirm the worst for the police. This was his niece. And then the police had the impossible task of telling her parents.
I can't even begin to imagine getting that news. So Reagan's disappearance instantly flips. It's now a full-blown murder investigation.
Right. And theories start flying immediately, as they always do. Random attack, someone she knew, even. The fear of a serial killer comes up.
And the autopsy, what did that reveal?
It only confirmed the horror, an execution-style killing, and evidence that she had been sexually assaulted. That part was understandably just devastating for her family, one of the hardest things for them to process.
So investigators are looking everywhere, trying to link it to other crimes, maybe?
Exactly.
Yeah.
They started looking hard at other local robberies, any attacks in dimly lit areas near ATMs, side streets, including the street behind Bodega where employees often parked. They were trying to see if there was a pattern.
What about the ex-boyfriend, Jake, given the recent breakup?
He was immediately a person of interest, yes, standard procedure. But he was questioned, had a rock-solid alibi, and was clearly devastated, crestfallen. Her roommates backed him up, too. He was cleared fairly quickly.
Okay, so that path closed.
Yeah.
Which allowed them to focus elsewhere. But there was still one huge missing piece, wasn't there?
Yes, her car, the 1999 silver Acura. Police were convinced it was still out there somewhere, and that it likely held crucial evidence.
So they doubled down on finding it, using license plate tracking, everything they had.
And it worked. They found it. Abandoned on Oakwood Avenue in southeast Columbus, not actually too far from Scioto Grove Park, where Reagan's body was discovered.
Finding that car must have felt like a huge break.
Oh, absolutely. A game changer. Because the car itself is like a mobile crime scene. And crucially, someone had tried to set it on fire.
Tried.
Yeah, tried and failed, thankfully. It didn't fully ignite, which meant that whatever evidence was inside, it was mostly preserved.
Wow, that's lucky in a grim way. What did they find inside?
A real treasure trove, as investigators often call it. They found cigarette butts on the front seats, a red gas can likely used in the arson attempt. But the big thing, receipts.
Receipts, like from stores.
Not just any receipts. They were kind of a mess, littered all over the car seats. But the police quickly realized these weren't shopping receipts. They were ATM transaction receipts.
Ah, that's different.
Very different. For police, that's basically a clearly labeled trail of evidence, a timeline.
What did the receipts show?
They showed multiple attempts to withdraw hundreds of dollars, but ultimately only about $60 was successfully withdrawn. It pointed towards robbery, at least as an initial motive.
So they could trace these back to specific ATMs.
Exactly. They pulled the records, identified the locations, they went to get the CCTV footage, probably expecting to see, a masked robber forcing someone else to use the card.
But that's not what they saw.
No, what they saw was chilling. The CCTV footage showed Reagan in her car making the transactions, but she wasn't alone.
Oh, no.
You could see someone else in the passenger side forcing Reagan to withdraw a lot of money. It was clear she was under duress.
So this confirms it wasn't just a robbery after the fact. It was an abduction, coercion.
Precisely. It escalated things significantly. Now, while the detectives were working on enhancing that grainy ATM footage, trying to get a clearer look at the passenger, another piece of evidence came through.
What was that?
The DNA results. From those cigarette butts they found in Reagan's car.
And was there a match?
There was a direct hit in the database. The DNA belonged to a 29-year-old man named Brian Golsby.
Brian Golsby. Did he have a record?
Oh, did he ever? Police described it as a laundry list of felonies. This wasn't just promising. This felt like the guy, the connection they needed.
Okay, Brian Golsby. This is where the story shifts, doesn't it? From the crime itself to how it could have even happened.
It really does. It shifts into this deeply troubling narrative of systemic failure because Brian Golsby wasn't just some random guy who snapped. He was classified as a Tier 3 sex offender.
Tier 3, what does that mean exactly?
That's the highest risk category. It means he was considered highly likely to reoffend, requiring the absolute strictest monitoring and reporting. And yet, he'd been released from prison just months before Reagan's murder, November 2016.
Months before. How? What was his history?
It started young, disturbingly young. As an adolescent, he sexually abused 2 children, aged 5 and 6.
Oh, my God.
And it just escalated from there, criminal trespassing, receiving stolen property, theft, shoplifting, criminal damage. He even threatened his own mother at one point.
And wasn't there a particularly violent offense before this?
Yes. He was sentenced to 6 years for abducting and forcing himself on a pregnant woman all in front of her 2-year-old son. A truly horrific crime, yet somehow released early. November 2016.
It's just hard to comprehend. How was his behavior in prison? Did that raise flags?
You would think so. During his, what was actually a relatively short time incarcerated, he committed over 52 infractions. 52.
What kind of infractions?
Everything. Possessing contraband, refusing orders, stealing, fighting, constantly creating disturbances. He was such a problem they had to transfer him between 5 different prisons in just 5.5 years.
5 prisons.
Yeah.
And he still got released early.
Somehow, yes. Despite this clear, documented pattern of danger and non-compliance, he is allowed back onto the streets.
So he gets released. What kind of monitoring was he under? Especially as a Tier 3 offender.
Well, this is where the failure becomes just staggering. He was given a GPS tracking device, an ankle monitor, supplied by a program called Elvis, which works with ex-offenders.
Okay, so they were tracking him.
Nominally, yes, but the device was, and I quote officials later, as good as useless. Why? Because Elvis, the agency responsible for actually monitoring the data from that tracker, didn't monitor Brian at all.
They just didn't check it.
Apparently not effectively. Or maybe not at all sometimes. It gets worse. His own parole officer didn't even keep up with him. There was basically no meaningful supervision.
So what happened? Did he reoffend while on parole before Reagan?
Yes. He committed 6 more robberies while he was on parole. 6. And he never got reprimanded for it. No consequences.
6 robberies?
Yeah.
And nobody noticed. Or nobody acted.
It appears no one acted decisively. He was living in this temporary housing center run by another program, the Exit program. They also failed to actively monitor a Tier 3 sex offender. He was just basically left free to do whatever he wanted.
What were his parole conditions? Did he even follow those?
One condition was simple. Be in the housing center between 10 p.m. and 6 a.m., keep his GPS charged, basic stuff. He violated the conditions and no one batted an eye.
No one. How could they justify that?
Unbelievably, Exit officials reportedly deemed his violations non-severe. For a high-risk sex offender with a violent history who was already committing new crimes.
This is unbelievable. Was there any process underway to deal with these violations?
There was. A hearing for Brian's 3rd parole violation was actually scheduled for February 23rd, 2017.
3rd violation hearing.
He could have returned to prison right then, might have, but before that date arrived, his crimes escalated catastrophically. He murdered Reagan Tokes.
Just days before he might have been sent back.
Exactly. It just forces you to ask that awful question. How many lives, starting with Reagan's, could have been saved if the system had just done its job, if someone had just paid attention?
The net was definitely closing in now, though. The evidence was just overwhelming.
Completely. You had the GPS monitor data putting him right near Bodega when Reagan left, and at all the ATMs she was forced to visit. You had CCTV footage of him buying that red gas can used in the arson attempt.
And the DNA.
And the DNA on the cigarette butts in her car, and critically, DNA found on Reagan's body itself. It all pointed directly to him. So just 2 days after Reagan disappeared, police surrounded Golsby's house. He was arrested.
How did he react when they brought him in? Did he confess right away?
Oh, no, not at all. Initially, it was total denial. Claimed he didn't know Reagan, had nothing to do with it. Standard stuff when the walls are closing in.
But the DNA evidence, that must change things.
It did. Once they confronted him with the irrefutable DNA report, his story started to, well, crumble and shift. That's a common tactic, trying to minimize involvement.
So what was his first version of the story once he admitted some involvement?
He admitted overpowering Reagan near her car after work, forcing her into the car, making her drive to ATMs to get cash. But he claimed he only ever planned to rob her.
Only rob her?
Yeah. He said after getting the money, he drove her to Scioto Grove Park, told her to turn her back, and then just left her there alive, drove away in her car. That was his story.
Which didn't explain the murder or the assault?
Not at all. So, under more pressure, his story changed again. Drastically. He invented a whole new person.
Yeah.
A guy he called TJ. He claimed this TJ forced him, Golsby, to rob Reagan, threatened Golsby's kids if he didn't comply. He said TJ then forced him to sexually assault Reagan, and then TJ was the one who actually shot and killed her.
Wow. That's quite a fabrication. Did the police buy it?
Not for a second. They knew it was a lie, but they played along strategically, used it to their advantage. They coerced him, basically saying, okay, if TJ did this, show us where he dumped the evidence.
Clever. Did it work?
It did. He ended up leading them to Reagan's clothes, her phone, the shell casings from the gun, and eventually the murder weapon itself, all while blaming this fictional TJ.
So he gave them everything they needed while still trying to deflect blame.
Yeah.
But when did the real truth come out?
Not to the police initially. The full, unvarnished truth came out when he confessed to people he trusted. His girlfriend, the mother of his children, and a close friend.
What did he tell them?
He told them everything. That he alone had robbed Reagan, sexually assaulted her, and then murdered her. It was all him. There was no TJ.
Yeah, what was his reason? Why kill her after the robbery and assault?
The reason he gave was just chillingly pragmatic in his mind. He didn't want to go back to prison. He was terrified Reagan would identify him, report him, so he didn't want to take any chances.
He killed her to silence her.
Yes. And his confession included Reagan's final moments. He admitted she pleaded with him to spare her life because she just wanted to live, begged for her life. He couldn't let her do that, he said, because he was afraid of getting caught. He stole this young woman's entire future, over $60, and his own fear. It's just sickening.
So Golsby is charged. Aggravated kidnapping, robbery, assault, aggravated murder. He pleads not guilty, of course.
Right. The trial starts February 23rd, 2018. The defense strategy, as you often see in these cases, focused on his background, his unfortunate childhood.
Trying to elicit sympathy or provide context.
Both, probably. They brought up claims of neglect, abuse, substance abuse in his past. Things that might explain, though not excuse, his path.
How reliable were those claims?
Well, the police pointed out that Golsby had a history of changing his stories to suit his needs, which made his accounts of his childhood seem less credible to them. The prosecution's focus, understandably, remained on the brutal facts of his actions against Reagan. A difficult past doesn't negate responsibility for such violence.
And the verdict?
On March 13th, which poignantly would have been Reagan's birthday, Golsby was found guilty on all charges. The sentence was swift and decisive. Life in prison, with no possibility of ever getting parole.
So I'll never get out.
Never. He will live and die behind prison walls. Justice, in that sense, was served for Brian Golsby. But Reagan's story, her legacy, that was really just beginning to take shape.
Yeah, it didn't end with a trial. That moment at the graduation, May 7th, 2017, when her parents and sister accepted her degree, that felt like a turning point somehow.
It absolutely was. From that deep, deep grief, something powerful emerged. They established the Reagan Tokes Memorial Foundation.
What does the foundation do?
It's incredibly active. It awards scholarships to students, helping them achieve the dreams Reagan couldn't. It conducts self-defense classes, empowering others, and it works tirelessly to spread awareness about street safety. It's truly turning tragedy into positive action.
And others stepped up too, right? Her ex-boyfriend.
Yes, Jake. Despite their breakup, he was clearly devastated. He started a GoFundMe in her memory, and it raised over $95,000. That money went to help other college students with tuition costs. A really touching tribute.
And the place where she was found, Theodore Grove Metro Park.
In a truly remarkable act of reclamation, the very place where Reagan's body was found, that field, it's been transformed. It's now a beautiful rock garden memorial, a sanctuary. A place where people can remember Reagan peacefully without the constant, painful reminder of what happened there.
That's beautiful. But her family, they wanted more than just memorials, didn't they? They wanted systemic change.
They absolutely did. They described it as having given up a piece of their hearts, and they were determined that no other family should endure that pain because of the same failures. So they started working tirelessly with Ohio lawmakers.
Driven by everything they'd uncovered about Golsby's release and lack of monitoring.
Exactly. And their advocacy, their refusal to let it go, led directly to the introduction of the Reagan Tokes Act in 2018. And incredibly, it was signed into law by the end of that same year.
That's fast for legislation. What does the Reagan Tokes Act actually do?
It makes some fundamental changes, addressing the specific failures in Reagan's case. First, it tackles sentencing for the most serious violent felonies. Class 1 and 2 offenses like rape, kidnapping, aggravated robbery.
How does it change sentencing?
It requires judges to impose sentences with both a minimum and a maximum term within a defined range. This is sometimes called indeterminate sentencing, but with stricter parameters. It means violent offenders like Golsby aren't just given a fixed number and let out early almost automatically.
Right.
Their release after the minimum term can depend on their behavior in prison, their assessed risk. It gives the parole board more discretion to keep dangerous individuals incarcerated longer, preventing them from being let off so lightly, as Golsby arguably was.
Okay, that addresses the release issue. What about the monitoring? The GPS failures?
That's the other crucial part. The Act mandates that paroled felons be monitored very closely and attend regular meetings. It puts teeth into the supervision requirements.
What does monitored very closely mean in practice now compared to what happened with Golsby? Is it just more check-ins?
It's more proactive. It means things like active real-time GPS tracking alerts for parole officers if an offender goes somewhere they shouldn't, or if the device tampers. Not just downloading data later. More frequent, often unannounced, home visits and check-ins. Stricter enforcement of conditions and clearer protocols for what happens when violations occur. Red flags are meant to be acted on immediately now.
So it directly targets those gaps that allowed Golsby to slip through.
Precisely. The whole driving force was that undeniable, heartbreaking realization. What happened to Reagan could have been prevented. If the reentry programs, if his parole officer had simply done their jobs effectively, the Act aims to close those specific loopholes.
So looking back at this deep dive, we've covered Reagan's bright life, just filled with promise. Then the absolute horror of a murder by Brian Golsby, and layered on top of that, the shocking failures of the very system designed to prevent such things.
But also, importantly, the incredible strength and resilience of her family, how they refused to let their grief destroy them, but instead used it to fuel this powerful demand for justice and safety that is now protecting others.
Yeah. What really stands out to you when you think about Reagan's story now? For me, it's such a haunting reminder. We can't control every evil act, obviously. But we can demand better from our systems. We can advocate for more vigilance.
Absolutely. This case, this deep dive, it really underscores how one family's fight, born from the worst imaginable loss, can lead to significant legislative change. It shows that even in the face of utter darkness, there's potential to create a lasting, positive impact.
The Reagan Tokes Act is now law, making sentencing and parole stricter. That's a concrete achievement.
Yeah.
But it leaves you wondering, doesn't it?
It does. It makes you think. What other failures might be happening right now, unseen, in other parts of the system, with other individuals? What potential tragedies are brewing that we just don't know about yet?
And what will it take for those issues to be addressed? Does it always have to take another horrific loss?
That's the provocative thought, isn't it? How do we as a society build systems that are proactive, that have the oversight and the resources to prevent these kinds of foreseeable, preventable crimes before they happen instead of just reacting afterward? It challenges all of us, really, to be more aware, demand accountability, and understand the real power and necessity of vigilance and reform.